Welcome back, everybody. This is Dylan on the Millennial Button Mashers podcast, and this week I want to specifically talk about the recent success of Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resync'd, and why I think there's actually some underlying things that might be causing the success of a previous game. And we've talked about remasters and remakes before, and of course, I'm not a huge proponent of them long term, but I can understand why specifically at this moment in time, they're doing really well. So in today's episode, I'm going to be diving in specifically to why that might be in my opinion on it. But during that, I would also love and welcome your opinions on why you think this also might be a trend right now in gaming history. With that, let's jump in. All right, so I actually don't think Assassin's Creed Black Flag is doing so well because everybody suddenly became obsessed with pirates again. I think it's succeeding because it's giving gamers something we've been craving for a long time now, and that's comfort. Think about everything competing for our attention today. Between work, family, social media, AI changing literally everything, the constant news cycle, and just an endless list of games that we are supposed to play, but I can't tell you how honestly I just feel so exhausted about deciding what I want to do with my free time. Matter of fact, I feel like I'm having an existential crisis every time I get a little bit of free time because I feel like I should be doing something else. And I think more and more people are realizing when they finally get an hour or two to themselves, they don't necessarily want to learn a brand new world or a new story. They don't want to memorize 20 different characters. They don't want to spend 5 hours wondering if a game is finally going to get good. Looking at you, Japanese RPGs. Sometimes you just want to play something you already know is incredible. And I think that's exactly why Black Flag Resync'd has resonated with so many people. Now, I was thinking about this the other day and I realized we already do this basically with every other type of entertainment. If you think about it, people rewatch The Office every year. Some people watch Harry Potter every single Christmas. Others have albums that they've listened to for 20 years, and nobody even questions that. In fact, most people understand. It feels comforting. Matter of fact, I do the same thing with Schitt's Creek. I come back to it time and time again if I'm stressed. It's just that comfort food that I need when I want to unplug and disassociate from life. But gaming has always been this weird thing where you're expected to move on to the next best thing, the next greatest game to come out, the newest release, the newest RPG, etc., etc. So almost like replaying an older game means you're somehow going to miss out on those great stories that are coming out every single month. And I don't think that's true anymore. I actually think we're entering an era where replaying a favorite game is becoming just as normal as rewatching your favorite movie. And honestly, I think that's extremely healthy. Gaming doesn't always have to be about chasing what's next. Sometimes it's about remembering why you fell in love with gaming in the first place. So let's go into why does Black Flag specifically work? Because Ubisoft isn't asking players to take a risk. You already know who Edward Kenway is. You already know how satisfying the naval combat is. Matter of fact, it's probably one of the most legendary naval combat systems still to this day. You already know the sea shanties. You already know the pirate fantasy absolutely delivers everything that you would want. There's almost zero uncertainty. And honestly, certainty has become valuable. Every time a brand new game comes out, there's always this little voice in the back of your head asking, is this actually going to be worth my time? What if it gets repetitive? What if it ends up being disappointing? What if I waste 20 hours before realizing I don't like it? Black Flag doesn't have that problem. You already know the answer. But here's what I think is really happening. I don't think people are replaying it just because they already know the story. I think they're replaying it because they know the story and they know that it kicks ass. And they get to experience it differently this time. Now, I don't think this is just nostalgia, because if it were, we'd all dust off all of our old copies and call it a day. But instead, what makes returning to these games so rewarding is that we're bringing something new with us, ourselves. We're now older, we've played more games, we've experienced more stories, and we're more patient than we were when we first played these games. And because of that, we notice things we completely missed the first time around. I'm actually replaying Kingdom Hearts right now, and it's been one of the most fun experiences I've had revisiting old games in these latter years. Sure, there's the comfort of hearing the music again, revisiting Traverse Town, and seeing all those Disney worlds I grew up with, but that wasn't what surprised me most. It wasn't the nostalgia. It was the details. There's a moment right after Destiny Islands when Sora, Riku, and Kairi are separated for the very first time. Later on, you get this brief flashback where Riku wakes up dazed and confused after being ripped away from his home and his friends. The first time I played Kingdom Hearts, that scene barely registered to me. I was just trying to figure out where the story was going next. But replaying it now, I realized something I never connected before. Riku wakes up in Hollow Bastion. Not only is Hollow Bastion one of the first major locations in the game, but when you eventually arrive there yourself, the very first place you land is the exact location where Riku woke up all those hours earlier. I completely missed that connection, and it made me appreciate just how carefully the story was woven together. That's something a replay gives you that your first playthrough can't. When you first experience a game, you're focused on what's going to be happening next. The second time, you're paying attention to why it happened. You're catching the foreshadowing. You're noticing dialogue that suddenly has a different meaning to you because you already know where everything ends up. It's almost like watching your favorite movie for a second time. You already know the ending, so instead of chasing the plot, you start appreciating the craftsmanship. I think that's another reason Black Flag Resync'd resonates. It isn't just letting people relive the memories, it's giving them another opportunity to appreciate a story they already love from a completely different perspective. I also think something else is happening here. We've reached a point where we almost have, dare I say, too many games. Proof is in the pudding here. Go and open Steam, open Game Pass, open PlayStation Plus. I guarantee you'll sit there scrolling for 5 minutes or more. There are literally hundreds of incredible games waiting to be played. And somehow that makes it even harder to pick one. I've definitely had nights where I spent more time browsing my library than actually playing anything. Matter of fact, sometimes I go through the process of looking for a game and then I end up downloading something only to have found that I don't want to play it anymore anyways, and I go to bed instead. I don't really love that type of gaming anymore. That decision fatigue just makes it difficult to want to game because it's actually a chore to go and find that game that I should be spending my time on. And I think that's why Black Flag cuts right through that. You don't have to decide whether it's good. You don't have to watch 5 YouTube reviews. You don't have to search Reddit to see if it gets better after 10 hours. You already know. You install it, you hit new game, and within minutes, you're sailing that pirate ship again. There's something really refreshing about that. I know for a fact, again, going back to my previous example of looking on Xbox Game Pass all the time, I will find games that I search for intensively, watching tons of trailers, looking at the reviews, going online, seeing the before you buys by Game Ranks. If I haven't told you guys before, I love Game Ranks and their opinions. So I go back and I do a ton of research. And then by the time I get to a game and I get settled on it, I end up getting tired and don't even get time to play anyway. So maybe Black Flag Resync'd isn't successful because gamers are running out of ideas. Maybe it's successful because gamers are running out of mental energy. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Life is busy. Gaming used to be the escape. Somehow along the way, gaming itself started asking a lot from us. Battle passes, daily challenges, massive maps, you name it. We also have these 100+ hour RPGs that take all of our time, all of our energy, all of our mental bandwidth. And sometimes, frankly, I just want to jump back into a story that I know. I just want to jump back on that pirate ship that I already know that I'll love. So I think Black Flag Resync'd is tapping into something much bigger than nostalgia. It's tapping into familiarity, comfort, confidence. And maybe most importantly, it's reminding us that the same stories are worth experiencing more than once. Not because we've forgotten them, but because we've changed. We're older, we notice different things, we appreciate different moments, and sometimes the second playthrough ends up teaching us more than the first one ever did. It respects something that becomes more valuable every year, our time. And honestly, I hope more studios pay attention. Not because I only want remasters, I absolutely want new experiences, but I also think there's room for games that remind us why we fell in love with gaming in the first place. I'd love to hear what you think though. What game do you feel deserves the Black Flag Resync'd treatment next? And matter of fact, I also want to ask you, what's your comfort show that you go back to? For me, it's Schitt's Creek and Bob's Burgers. I can always tune out to the world and just get, into those comedies and those worlds, resonate with those characters, and I just appreciate them time and time again as I continue to lose mental bandwidth with how stressful my job is. And if you were to replay your favorite game today, what do you think you'd notice this time around that completely went over your head the first time? Thank you all so much for listening. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share with a friend. Please also review wherever you guys get your podcast, either Spotify, YouTube, or Apple. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Stay safe, stay gaming.